Here we are. Welcome everyone to this session of, going and taking your business to new heights and boosting your business. Today, I have with me 6 of the best business experts in Orange County. And, I might be biased, but they might be the best in North America, talking to everybody about what to do in these unprecedented times. We are all facing different challenges, whatever it might be, in all aspects of the business. And I have with me experts who are going to tell you the top things you need to be paying attention to in these tough times, so not only you can survive this crisis but also thrive. So first, I'm gonna let Lisa Nguyen take it away. So go ahead, Lisa.
Hi, thank you, Hala.
And share your top tips for our business owners.
Sounds good. So thank you, Hala, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Lisa Nguyen. I am mommy to 3 crazy, beautiful little people, Robert, Gianluca, and Milan. But I'm also the founder and CEO of SMARTBEAN Inc. We provide bookkeeping service to small businesses. And one of the things that our clients really love about us is that we work on their books daily, so their financials are always up to date. But beyond accurate bookkeeping, our mission is to revolutionize the relationship between the small business owners and their numbers. And by that, our goal is to help our clients know their numbers, like know where they're at, understand it, and from there, they can use it to better their business, make better decisions, and increase their profit. The reason I bring this up is that we are in a unprecedented time, wouldn't you say? And I know a lot of us are, yes, and a lot of us are looking at our business plans and trying to pivot from where we're at. So my only reminder on that is, as you are looking at your numbers, focus on the net profit and not so much the revenue. So revenue might be, might be slower right now. Your sales might not be as high as it used to be. But if you have good control of your operating expense, negotiate with your vendors so that you can have better profit margin, your bottom line might still be okay. It doesn't have to be affected by that. So I have to throw that in just really quick, even though my topic for today is to share with you on what is the best way to accurately record the different stimulus funding that you might have received or going to receive from the different government agencies. We have federal programs, state and local programs. So to answer this question, I want to you to focus, I organize it in basically 4 different areas. So first is you have the grant. And this is something that I've seen a lot from my small business clients that they are getting from either the nonprofits or local city districts that are giving out these grants, that granting from anywhere from $1,000 to tens of thousands of dollars. So if you are receiving a grant, then that is considered other income, and what you should do is that number should go onto your profit and loss statement, okay? And my suggestion would be make it easy for your tax filer at the end of the year. When you name these the category, just call it grant and then dash, and then what is the name of that grant? Because 6 months from now you want to know what that is. So grant, go into on profit and loss as other income. And then another type of funding that we've seen is forgivable loans. And so the most famous one is the Paycheck Protection Program, right? So the Paycheck Protection Program, it is a loan until it is forgiven. So as we know that it is a loan, but we know that by the end of the year, most of it, or if all of it, could be forgiven. So when you receive that money, you record it as a current liability, and that goes on your balance sheet, okay? Now, right now, some of the lenders are already accepting PPP forgiveness applications. So if you have questions on that, just reach out to me. I'm happy to help you with it. But let's say you apply for the forgiveness and you get 100% forgiven, right? So now that full amount of the loan go on to your profit and loss now, because it's going to come in again, other income, and you also want to say that is a PPP loan, because your CPAs at the time of filing your taxes might want to change that to what we call compensation expenses. So it's all up to the CPA depending on your tax situation. But there's a movement there from being on the balance sheet to being on the profit and loss. Now, the part of the loan that is not forgiven remain on your balance sheet, and it needs to be changed to a long-term liabilities. I know all these things is really fun to me, probably not the best thing you want to hear right now, but just so you know that when you look at your statements, if you have someone who's working on your book, that they know what they're doing. Another part of this, one of the other things that's really popular too is the EIDL loan, or EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Now there's two parts to that. The grant, which they call the advance part, anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 that you might have gotten, and then there's a loan part. So what did I say earlier? If it's a grant, we put it on the profit and loss as other income. And the loan part of it, the one that is 30 years term, 3.75%, that is a long-term liability. So it needs to go onto the balance sheet, and then you need to make sure you calculate the difference between the principal and the interest payment, because there's different, the interest is tax deductible, right? So just so you know, just look at your balance sheet, make sure that EIDL loan is on there. And the last piece, this is quite confusing, but you have to know, if you have payroll, if you have employees and you have payroll, there is a program called Social Security Deferral Program. So make sure you know that it's not a grant, the government's not giving you money, they're just telling you can pay this tax later. So as a business owner, when you pay your employees payroll, you also have to pay Social Security taxes, right? Now, what the government is saying is that portion of the Social Security tax that you normally pay for your employees can be deferred. That means you can pay it next year and the following years. It's not forgiven, it's just deferring. So when you run payroll, the payroll company is only taking out the money from your bank account for the amount that you are due now. The amount that you owe, that you need to pay later, that amount needs to go onto your balance sheet. You have to be aware of that liability, that loan, because you are going to have to pay that back. And if anybody have had payroll, you know that the governments are really strict about payroll taxes. And Chris can tell you about that later, because they feel that that's not your money. That is your employees' money. So they are really, really strict about that. So I hope you got some good insight from there. That's my part. I don't know who's up next.
And if you find any of this overwhelming,
yeah,
direct it to the expert.
Yeah. I didn't mean to make it sound overwhelming, but
no, it didn't. I think you explained it in a very, simple, easy to understand way. But I know from many of the people that I talk to, just the idea of the numbers is overwhelming. What to allocate where, what's the difference between P&L and balance sheet, and where to put what. So thank you for clarifying, which, grant or loan goes into what part. And, when in doubt, give it to the expert. So thank you, Lisa, so much. I know we're going to go around, and after that, we're going to open it for questions. Some of them we have received in advance, and thanks to everyone who sent us their questions. So we're going to go over the questions, but now we're going to go over one by one to share best practices on what the business owners need to look at in these times. So now I'm going to move it to Brian Armstrong, who's going to tell us a little bit about business succession planning. So Brian, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know, educate the business owners, what do they need to look for when it comes to business succession planning?
Thanks, Hala, and welcome to the group. So yeah, my name is Brian Armstrong. I'm a life insurance agent at TruePath Financial over in Newport Beach. Have access to about 70 different insurance companies in the market, which pretty much is the entirety of the market. And modern insurance in the last few years has changed. So I offer what's called living benefits, which you actually, on a term policy, typically people have for life insurance, allows you to access that part of that term benefit while you're still living. You can access the cash in case of an event, which typically we're going to talk about businesses now, and that kind of happens and kind of move into a segment. Life insurance, when it comes to like the business, we typically look at what's called a buy-sell agreement between business owners. That's typical. A lot of times, if you get a small business loan, an SBA will usually allow you, they will usually want to have life insurance on each individual in case something were to happen on that loan. That's where it goes into the actual loan on the business. But then it could be for the individuals who actually own the business. There's also something called a key man insurance. Somebody has a business and they may have one key person that's actually running the business. Something were to happen to that person, they pass away, that life insurance allows that business owner to go out and hire somebody else to take that person's place. And that could take, a year to hire somebody. You might have to hire 2 people to do the same job that one person was doing. So that life insurance comes into play with that too. But then we ask, yourself, who else owns a part of the business when it comes to doing like a life insurance policy on the business? Something were to happen to one person, the sole owner of the business, who else would own the business? Who would take over that business? It's a good question I always ask. And what's the value of the business too? How do you evaluate that value? Because maybe when you first started the business, the valuation was $2 million, and there's a life insurance policy for $1 million on each person. In case that person would pass away, the other person would buy that family out for $1 million and own the business 100%. But typically what's problematic a lot of times is maybe that valuation goes from $2 million to $8 million. And we still have a $1 million insurance policy. So that buy-sell agreement, if you get with an attorney like Nate, we'll talk about buy-sell agreements probably too. You want to make sure you update that, either annually or every 3 or 4 years so that evaluation is correct. And then we talk about maybe selling the business, a succession, where's going to be the source of equity to provide for retirement when you sell the business? Where's that money coming from? How do we do a retirement plan? If you get hurt, sick, or injured, who's going to run the business as well? These are all things we can think about and factors. But then actually selling the business, we can actually give you a tool. Typically, we've been in business like the last 5 years. We can give you a tool that's going to give you an evaluation of what your business is worth right now. And then we can make tweaks to the business to make it worth more on paper. So when it's time to sell, you're going to be at the optimum, evaluation of your business. There's also disability comes into play too. If there's 2 business owners, it's kind of problematic. What if one person gets sick and the other person's left running the business? So we can look at life insurance with these living benefits that would pay out a certain part to the other party in the business in case that were to happen too. So different things to think about. Definitely be more than happy to answer more questions because it's so complex when it comes to different businesses. Depends on that particular business, but yeah, we'll go from there.
Thank you, Brian. I think this is an area where most people don't want to think about, but they should, but definitely an area that is very important because, you never know what's going to happen, tomorrow. So it's better be prepared. So thank you so much, Brian, for sharing this. And we're gonna, come back to you because there were a few questions regarding this area. So thank you for sharing, Brian. And now we're gonna hear from Kelleen Connolly. She's gonna talk about, healthcare coverage made simple in complicated times. So Kelleen, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and what do owners and businesses need to look for when it comes to health coverage?
Thanks, Hala. Thanks, everyone, for being here. So I'm Kelleen Connolly. I am a health insurance broker and owner of COPIOUS Insurance Solutions here in Laguna Niguel. And I've been licensed for 10 years, and we just do what we can to help business owners and people secure insurance and make it easy and simple for them to navigate those waters, because it can get complicated and it can change as things develop, such as something like this, a pandemic. So what we have that's new for this situation is the new rules involving the Federal CARES Act. And the CARES Act, you guys have probably heard about it a lot lately, but it stands for Coronavirus Aid, Relief, Economic Security Act. And how that impacts employer-sponsored health plans is that there's some just pivoting new rules as this situation has developed. And to the credit of the insurance companies, they've really been able to pivot quickly, which is not usually something that health insurance companies can do always, but they've had to help people and just reduce the stress and the situations that have arise from this. So the first thing that was enacted was that preventative testing was made affordable. And then the California insurers took it one step further and made it that all carriers were going to have to cover preventative testing 100%. So there was no cost, whether you had whatever plan you had, you were not going to pay a copay, a co-insurance, or a deductible for preventative coronavirus testing. And you just want to make sure that when that happens, that it's billed properly and it's billed under coronavirus, because that is what the insurance company is going to be looking for. Also, people that were on high deductible plans, because those tend to be the most affordable monthly premiums, so people are on those. You don't have to meet that deductible in order to receive telehealth visits, which is now becoming even more popular with people not wanting to go into the doctor's offices and the hospitals to get tested. So they're doing telehealth visits virtually, and those are also covered as well. So make sure that those are billed properly. And then once developed, a vaccine or another approved preventative service must be covered by the insurance companies within 15 days after it is recommended. Now, usually something like this would take a year to be covered, but due to the CARES Act, they've moved it up to 15 days. So once that is in place, you'll be able to get those almost immediately. And then in addition, one further step that some of the carriers have done is that they're offering concessions, such as right now we're in the middle of the year, we wouldn't normally be able to apply for insurance outside of open enrollment unless you have a qualifying event. Well, now they've created a new qualifying event for coronavirus. So if you're concerned about that, you can apply because you want to be covered during coronavirus and during a pandemic. Also, people that maybe lost hours due to this situation would normally be able to be, or would have to be taken off the insurance because they don't meet the hourly requirements for employer-sponsored plans. But many of these carriers are allowing people to remain covered so that there's just less stress involved.
Good.
Yes. Extended grace periods for billing. So normally you have about a 30-day grace period to pay those monthly premiums. They're now extended to 60 days. Some are even more. It depends on the carrier. So definitely keep your eyes peeled for emails from your carriers because they are updating people regularly. And then another thing is that they're waiving the deductibles, the copays, and the co-insurance, as I mentioned before, but also for treatment of coronavirus. So make sure those are billed properly under the coronavirus billing codes. And then that's happening, those treatment coverages are happening until the end of this year, 2020. They've been extended, so that's a good situation. Also, one last thing is that Anthem is now offering employers premium credits to ease the cost for the employers. So look for those discounts. They're about 15 to 50% depending on what plan you have. But there may be some other insurers that are following suit with that. So always good to have discounts on your monthly premiums. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy to answer any other questions later.
Thank you, Kelleen. I'm so happy to hear that, you know, those insurance carriers are looking after the employer as well as, you know, the employees themselves, because, you know, in times of pandemic, you know, everybody, you know, we're all in this together. So it's good to see that they're not, you know, they're supporting everyone and the business owners to help. So that's great. And, you know, we're going to have some more questions later. So now talking about love in time of pandemic, I mean, HR in time of COVID, HR and payroll. Chris Fergus from Heartland, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about how payroll and the HR is being primarily affected, and what is Heartland doing to help?
So thank you, Hala, for putting this together and inviting me all. And so my name is Chris Fergus. I'm with Heartland Payroll. We are a full service payroll company. I've been in the business for over 20 plus years, which I hate to say, but it's true. But, one of the things, the interesting question is payroll and HR, even in the pandemic, it's changed, but it really hasn't. And what I mean by that is, again, payroll and HR is really, or let me take a step back. You need to understand when you have employees and as an employer, your responsibilities, you have to have certain laws, certain regulations, certain compliance things you have to deal with. And the best way to look at those things is in the eyes of how California or the state UN looks at you. California is a business, okay? And California gets their revenue from taxes, from fees and fines. And a lot of those fines come when you as a business or a business owner are out of compliance. So that's where we come in as a payroll company. A lot of people think payroll companies are just about cutting checks, paying taxes, which is a main focus of ours. But a lot of what we really do is we're more of an advocate for you, meaning you need somebody who's going to advise you and give you advice and show you in the right direction. We're also an advisor to actually give you more advice about, hey, what's a better way, how to manage your people, what are the things you need to watch for? And you also need someone who's going to be a defender, someone who's actually going to fight for you to say, look, hey, these are the things that you're not doing. Because if you don't do these things, the state, just as I said, as a business, is coming for you. They're going to try to get fines and fees and everything above when you don't handle things the right way. So that's really where a payroll, HR, and really a business service company that Heartland is, and myself, that's where we come in. We don't just sit there and say, hey, look, show me what you're doing. I'll tell you how much it costs. Basically, we want to see, hey, tell us what how are you managing employees? What's some of your pain points? What are some of your issues around managing those employees? Are they from afar? You have hourly, you have a lot of different issues. And then we try to build a solution around that. So we like to call that more of the employee life cycle. How do you hire employees? Where do you find them? How do you onboard them? How do you pay them? How do you, again, if things get to a point of maybe it's time to advise them to go to a different location or a different employer, that's the best way to exit that, that process. So, it's all of the above. So, as people, when you hear the word payroll, people think cutting checks. That's what you do. That's really kind of the least amount of thing that we do. It's everything in between, from, as we say it, from the hire, maybe not too politically correct, but from the hire to the fire process. We try to be able to help you not only manage that, but more importantly, keep you in compliant with that. Now you throw in COVID-19, where there's all the different rules and the different, employer laws. Again, someone gets sick and they need to do the 80 hours of mandatory sick time. Well, we try to set that up so you have a separate code so that you can easily pull that out. So if some of the state says, hey, we're getting a complaint that you didn't give people time, we can track that sick and make it a special COVID sick code so that they can pull it out and say, no, here's our reports. Here are all the people that we gave that time. Here's all the information that you need. And that's just a minor, sample of what we can do or how we manage, or basically how we advise clients. Hey, it's not a matter of just what you normally do. Here's another option. Here's something that we recommend, and basically kind of force you to do, to say, hey, this is how it needs to be done. So when I say defender, sometimes offender, we like to say we're defenders against the state and the regulation, but we also like to say we're defenders against you. And what we mean, you as the employer, is saying, no, that you can't do that. We're going to tell you no. We're going to basically save you from yourself, because a lot of these things are things that someone says, okay, I could do that, but I don't want to. And what you find in compliance, sometimes it's not what you did, it's what you do. Did you handle it? You realized there was an issue. Did you address it? Were you proactive? Did you try to change it? And if you do that, the only good thing I find about the state of California as it relates to that if they do find that if you are proactive about something, they will give you a break. They will give you a chance to rectify it rather than come down on you as, some line. So if you take that approach, and if you have someone who's with you, like a Heartland, like myself, who's going to tell you not what you can't do, but what you should be doing. along with using payroll, the onboarding, time and attendance, all these different things to manage your employees, whether in your office or from home. These are the things that we bring to the table that's more than just payroll.
Oh, fantastic.
So that's how we bring it to you. And yes, I'm not as politically correct as I should be.
No, you're not. but definitely
you're among friends.
Exactly. But this is something that is, very important to know, that where you're gonna help them provide all the documentation to stay in compliance, and this is great.
Yeah.
For
I mean, we even just have like a simple, we have a COVID-19 checklist that, hey, that if you're bringing
that you are
back,
proactively sending
yeah,
to
so if you're bringing people back into the office, you have to check this box. And again, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do it 100% right, but if you're showing you're being proactive, it really does close that liability gap, saying, look, hey, we're trying, we're doing the right thing, we're reaching out to people. That makes a big difference. A lot of people don't think so, but that little bit of effort can go a long way in protecting you as a business owner.
Fantastic. And we did, we're going to go back and try to answer all the questions, and hopefully you can shed some light if anyone has any questions related to what Heartland can help. And now we're gonna move to our lawyer of the group to tell us about what's the difference between starting a business and owning a business. Nate, would you please introduce yourself and tell us more about how you are helping businesses in these times?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for putting this together, Hala. Right now it is really remarkable how many people have been coming up with new businesses and starting businesses. It seems that people have had an idea burning in the back of their mind, and that, it turns out being busy at work has been the only thing in their way from getting their new things launched. So we've been very busy lately dealing with people who are improving their businesses and starting new businesses. But one of the really important things for new businesses to do is not only come up with a strong name and a strong logo and slogan and brand, but it's really important for them to actually go out and do, or even better if they hire somebody to do the proper research to make sure that that's not already owned by somebody else, and file the applications for protection of the name, logo, and slogan, so that they can actually own the brand of their new business. So that's where trademark protection comes into play. A trademark is a type of intellectual property protection that protects the name of business, a logo, or a slogan. And it can be words, pictures, or a combination of words and pictures that identify the source of goods and services. For the normal consumer, this is what we think of as branding. It's a logo or a slogan, and all those traditional examples are famous. The Nike swoosh or the Coke bottle, things like that people are very familiar with. But those are also things that local business owners start to gain a property right in as soon as they launch their business. I have been dealing with a lot of people in the last 2 months that went to an online service. Think a LegalZoom or Trademark Engine or other type of online service to help that claims to help prepare and file these applications, and then something goes south. And that's when they end up coming to me. I'm always happy to help people. I have no judgment against people who have used those things. And I really love to help them dig themselves out of the holes that may have, been unintentionally caused by using that. And one thing that I can do with that is to make sure that the application is filed properly. And if it's not filed properly, help them fix the problem now before they end up spending more time and money on something that is not protecting them in the long run. And just to give some peace of mind to people that maybe have started something but haven't actually done the paperwork to protect their trademark. Trademark rights are something that you actually gain through use. So starting to use your name is something that is safe until you get a cease and desist letter. You know, it's one of those things that you should do your due diligence and make sure that you're not stealing from somebody else. But if you haven't contacted me or another trademark attorney yet, it's not too late and we can always help. So talking to an attorney is always a good idea from the get-go. And I'm here to answer questions about trademarks and also patents for people who have invented new products. And happy to answer questions for anybody, and just have to throw in there the disclaimer that my opinion and what I'm sharing with you here today is for informational purposes only and is not legal advice.
Of course. So you're saying that I cannot start a company and call it Apple, and someone's gonna get after me?
Especially if you're going to sell computers or something related to them.
Thank you, Nate, and thanks for the legal disclaimer.
Love
You know, speaking of legal and disclaimers and liabilities, we have with us Mr. Eric Evans, who's going to talk to us a little bit about, you know, in new ways of doing business and new liability exposure, but this time from an insurance perspective. So Eric, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us more about what you do and what should business owners be looking out for?
You got it. Thank you, Hala, and thank you, panel. Great to be on the same panel with you all. So my name is Eric Evans. I am the founder of Chrysalis Insurance Agency. We're an Orange County based agency that serves the 7 Western United States, mostly focused and concentrated here in California. So I would say there are 3 areas to look at with respect to these new times as a business owner. And I'll go over each of them. The first one is about your home-based employees. The second would be your payroll and what that looks like since shutting down, perhaps restarting again. And then thirdly, an overall insurance inspection or review. So home-based employees, what's key and what's important to look at with that? It's primarily the cyber exposures that the business owner has. Because when everyone was safe in the cocoon of your business, and you had however many people are in your business, 3, 103, and every number in between, you had firewalls and computers protected, and your cyber expert in there talking about which emails to open, which emails to not open. You may have had software locked down, and now you suddenly say, everyone go home, and now they're on their whatever modem they have, whatever router they have, their home-based security, if that's probably an oxymoron, as well as their home-based computers they got when they were in college. So those are things to be really aware of, because cyber crimes are some of the fastest things happening in the country right now, because it takes one email for one employee to open, and suddenly that computer can now be a host and infect every person that person has emailed. It can affect everyone on your network, everyone on your system, and it could log keystrokes. Now it's accessing passwords, access to your database. If that person is on the finance side, maybe it's going to get into your bank accounts. It's going to ask them to wire money to somebody, and the email may seem to come from you, the business owner, and say, hey, CFO, wire $100,000 to this company's account. And they say, okay, because maybe you wire $100,000. Maybe it's only 10,000. Maybe it's only 5,000. But only 5,000 can be a lot. It can make the difference between making rent that month or not. Yeah. So those are key areas to be focused on. And while you could try to do everything you can to be secure, you're never 100% secure. A cyber liability policy can come in and supplement any efforts you're making for securing your people from making mistakes. It's sort of like what Chris was alluding to earlier about protecting business owners from themselves. You've got to protect your staff from themselves, because sometimes there are emails that look like they came right from you with your company URL going right to the person, and they're thinking, oh, okay, the boss wants me to do such stuff. Anyway, so that's issue number 1. Issue number 2 I had mentioned is workers' compensation. So back when early March, mid-March, when suddenly the emergency brake was tugged when everyone was roaring along at freeway cruising speed, and we all sort of seemingly came to a grinding halt. You know, restaurants closed, everything's closed. You can't find any paper products in the stores or bottled water, even though the tap wasn't shut off, you know, those things. And anyway, so a lot of people panicked and said, okay, I have no employees. I let everybody go. Get me down to zero, or get me down to a tenth of where I was. And then as we all kind of figured it out, and as employees were getting back on board with employers, the PPP loan money was flowing to business owners. The restaurants figured out how to open and do business in the parking areas around the restaurants, or be more efficient and effective with getting their food out the door and with catering or to go, or however they did it. Suddenly payrolls were going back up. But that phone call you made in mid-March or late March and said, hey, zero out all my payroll, or at least zero it out from this point going forward, you have to remember to say, hey, we're resuming operations and I'm busier more now than ever before, if you're in certain industries, or maybe you're at a quarter, but you have to get those back up. So it's imperative to do that. In fact, I had one client I reached out to whose policy renewed about 2 months after everything kind of shut down. And then it's been 2 months since that policy was renewed. And I reached out and said, hey, has anything changed? And sure enough, they went from where they were, which was a fraction of the payroll, way back up. And so if you don't have an agent that's making that call to you and you forget, you're in for a nice surprise come audit time, because you will be audited and you will write a really large check. So it's better to pay that over the next 6 to 8 months as opposed to doing it one lump sum. And finally, I mentioned an overall policy review, because if revenues are off, a lot of people pay their insurance based on revenues. A lot of liabilities based on revenues. Some of you are audited based on your annual revenues. So you want to make sure that those are in check. And if your agent's not calling you about, hey, have your revenues dropped? Have they increased? You want to make sure you're making the call. Hey, you know, I'm not going to do 3 million this year. I'm going to do probably 1.8. Do it now, because you're not going to get that money back. So make that adjustment now. Work comp, you will get the money back in an audit. Liability, you will not. Things like vehicles. So do you have a fleet of vans or trucks that have made deliveries and are sitting idle, that haven't been started up in 2 months? Try to see if you can get the coverage reduced. Perhaps taking off the liability if that's possible. Not every company will allow you to take off liability. Maybe you remove your comp and collision and make sure the vehicles don't get stolen. Something to reduce that exposure. Letting them know, hey, I don't have 10 drivers anymore. I only have 2. That can impact pricing on an auto policy. But it's just taking a pulse and the temperature of your overall insurance package. And also, if things are tough, quote it. Get it quoted. For example, we've been saving people in the automotive world about 30%. Compared to some of the one of the more larger captive companies that kind of owned that industry. And I'm in there like, I'll save you a third. They're like, serious? Yeah, I've got one company going to save them almost $12,000. And they've been paying $36,000 even over the last 3 months, $3,000 a month, $3,000 a month. I'm going to come in, hey, I'm going to save you over $1,000 a month. And they're shell shocked. Like, really? Is this real? I have to convince them it's real. So anyway, those are the key areas, and the way our agency is situated, we have a whole team that helps with renewals. So they're focused. There's 3 people full-time. That's our sole focus. We focus on renewals for our clients, make sure they're still in the best spot possible. We shop with our many carriers, and we cover different lines of business, but we have access to well over 50 companies, depending on the line of business. We don't have 50 work comp carriers or 50 commercial auto carriers, but well over 50 companies we work with and put our clients with. But anyway, I know I'm sure I have a few questions more specific than what I covered, and I look forward to getting those. And thanks again, Hala and panel.
Thank you, Eric. That was, very, very informative. And I wanted to, give you a big compliment. You have a great virtual background. And thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
For being...
If you hear the wood chopping in the background, that's a virtual sound. So.
Right.
There you go.
Looks like you're not covered, Eric. Insurance joke. Oh, God.
Exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Well, thank you everybody for being here today. And this is just an opportunity to let every business owner know that there is help out there in every single part of your business, whether, you know, your books or your insurance, your payroll, your health coverage, even making sure that you are, you know, having everything from your intellectual property covered. There are so many things. And consider this team as your extended team. Reach out, ask for opinion, ask for reviews. We are here to help everyone make it through and be very successful when this thing, you know, goes over. So just to quickly wrap up before we move on to everybody's question, and thanks everyone for sending all these private message me with your questions when the post was announced. I would like to give an overall, you know, from a business perspective. Let me first, you know, I didn't have an opportunity to introduce myself. And I am a business coach with Action Coach. And what I would love to have every single business successful. And, you know, knowing these great experts in their field, I blindly recommend them to every single business because they are the best of the best in their industry and they going to look after you. So from a business perspective, what are the top 7 things that every single business owner needs to look for in these days? Number 1, marketing. Keep marketing in every single thing that you do. Now more than ever, you need to double and triple your marketing effort to reach out to as many clients as possible. Number 2, update your website. Since Eric mentioned that, you know, there is a lot happening online now, but update it, make it secure, but make sure it's providing valuable information, valuable content. And people now, they're not shopping around, they're checking websites, they are in front of the computer. So be, as a business owner, where your clients' eyeballs are. So if they're scrolling online looking for something, make sure that you pop up and that you are visible to them. Use video content and show that you are providing valuable information, valuable content to them so that you are a subject matter expert. No matter what you do, always bring value. Small videos will take it a long way because in order for people to do business with you, they have to know you, like you, and trust you. And what better way than to see you face to face? So when they reach out to you, they already know who you are and what kind of value you can bring to them. Use social media. Social media is big. Use Facebook, use Instagram, use social posts to drive awareness, to show the value that you are doing and the content that you are doing. I would love to see more people celebrating their teams, celebrating their clients, celebrating their products, because this is exactly what this is all about. In these times of crisis, you know, we are taking so many things for granted and we shouldn't. So if our employees are working maybe twice as hard, to be very honest, you know, being in their homes, let's celebrate them and give them all the recognition. And those clients who stuck with us because they are our raving fan, let's celebrate them and give them the recognition they deserve. The last 2 things are going to be the most important one. Cash is king. Make sure you understand your numbers. And if you don't, contact Lisa.
Yes.
In order, and she mentioned that in her, you know, when she first started talking, having a profitable business is now more important than ever. Having positive cash flow is more important than ever. It's not about going big, it's going rich. So try to focus on the right activities to keep your business surviving. And finally, plan, plan, plan. Nothing goes without planning. So, and as the old saying goes, failing to plan is planning to fail. So plan how's your 90 days gonna look like from now until the end of the year, and then break it down quarterly, break it down monthly, weekly, daily, even hourly. No one has ever complained for more planning. Usually people get in trouble for less planning. So let's all plan for the success. And I guarantee you, if you have any questions, reach out to the expert, reach out to people who know their stuff, and they will be able to help you. So that's it from an overall business perspective. And I'm gonna now go over the questions that we started receiving. But before I start the question, does anyone have like some thoughts, some open point of discussion? Would you like to share anything? Or shall we start digging deep into the questions?
Let's go for it.
So for the question, I like the 7 points though. Hala, would you post that? Is that somewhere we can, it's like a checklist that you just got over.
Yes. I'll definitely create, I have created a flyer that I would share with everyone, and then you can share it with your team and clients. So
yes,
definitely.
I love that.
Awesome, fantastic. So what the first question, we have for Mr. Chris Fergus. During the COVID-19, how are businesses supposed to stay compliant with state and federal employment laws?
You know, that's a great question. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying. So, you know, a lot of what you need to have, again, you need to have access to that information, specifically as it relates to your business. And really access to information, Google doesn't count. Because Google, a lot of times when it has it, it will give you some broad, aspects or kind of give you some ideas, but it's not specific to your business or maybe your, specific industry. So again, a lot of times what we do, again, within our payroll, we have HR. And HR isn't just, it is access to information and a site with it. We also have, a COVID resource center. We have COVID, kind of whole sections of what you're supposed to do, the notifications, the things that you're supposed to do for your handbook, or how you're supposed to get out to your employees, the different, notices and the different posters you're supposed to have. But it's also more specifically is also to be able to ask the questions. Hey, I specifically have this. Or we have this specific situation. So you actually have access to HR professionals where you can text them, you can have a chat to them, or you can pick up the phone. And more importantly, so that's one. But the other thing is, hey, you need to review your handbook. One of the things you have to have is a handbook that says, hey, and add those COVID-19 addendums. And again, when you have those, again, those can be out in email. But again, do you have an intranet site or a site that you can have it? Do you have to send it to them? Do you have to email it? Do you have to put it in the mail? There's all different rules about what you're supposed to do specifically to your business. So that's what you need. Again, it goes back to having an advocate, an advisor, and a defender who's going to basically tell you these are the things, but not only access to the information, but specific information to your business, your employees, and again, specifically to COVID-19, but also people working at home, like Mr. Evans put it out there and everybody else is saying, hey, there's a lot of different landmines out there for people working from home. How are you supposed to address them? What are technically working hours? They have their home computer, work computer, all that access. What are they doing? So again, having access to the information, but more importantly, specific information that an advisor, an HR person, or a site like a internal site like Heartland has that is giving you specific information about your, employee related in California and how that works and all the different notifications you have to have. Because again, this is just, it's another landmine you could step on. And that's how we help.
You mentioned the employee handbook. Is it an additional service you provide, or this is something part of the agreement that you have with your client?
So we do have different levels of service, if you will. But again, when someone wants HR, it's just built into our pricing. So it's on a per pay period basis. And again, when I say AIDS handbook, that's included in that. So you can either get a specific handbook, something where you just ask a few questions, or you can get a professional version where you're literally working with an advisor to say, hey, it's specific. We're in trucking. We're in this X, Y, and Z industry that might be specific. And you'll work with them, and they'll, you know, so as we say, if you get just the regular handbook, it might be 25 pages. You get a professional handbook, it can be 60 to 70 pages.
Yeah, sure.
With the addendums, with everything that you need on top of just the standard federal and state notifications.
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. And the other question is for Lisa. How do I know if my books are up to date and the information is accurate?
Okay, thank you, Hala. So to answer the question, I think it's best to separate it in two parts. First part is if you are keeping the books yourself, right? So I know a lot of you are trying to do this and save money, and I totally get that. I used to do the same. If you are doing your own books and you are entering the transaction into the books, the one part that I see a lot of clients had prior to me that had missed is that they don't reconcile the books. You know that when the government do an audit on your account, you know what they do? Is they look at your bank statements and they say, okay, you know, Lisa, in July, this was the bank showed that you had, you know, $100,000 deposited into your bank account. Where did all the money go, right? And then you have this much amount in expenses. Where do they go? So what you want to make sure is at the end of the month that you reconcile, you compare what is provided to you by the banks on the bank statement, the credit card statements, your PayPal statements, your payroll reports, and compare that with the numbers you have in your books. That process is called reconciliations, and a lot of the accounting software have that tools in there that you should use. Just by checking off the transaction as it goes through, it's very easy for you to miss a transaction or two, and then your numbers do not match up. If you hire someone, if you have a bookkeeper, the best way to know the number, if the number is up to date, is by just going into register and comparing what is showing in your bank account on the first day of the month versus the last day of the month. Run your income statement. You look at your profit and loss reports and your balance sheet, and there should not be any negative numbers on there, okay? So if you see a negative numbers on your statements, on your reports, your profit and loss reports, look at it, because that means that it happens. Sometimes you will have that, but you have to understand why it's the negative numbers, because more often than not, that transaction needs adjustment. It needs to be moved to somewhere else. And then the last piece on that is there should not be any categories in your financial statement that is something, uncategorized or undeposited funds, or ask my client, ask my accountant transactions, because when there are money in those categories, it does not do you any good. It doesn't give you any insight into your business. It's just sitting there in the wrong places. So make sure there's nothing that's in there that is something. And then also, so those are some of the pointer I can give you for right now.
Okay, so ban the uns. We don't want
ban the uns. Yes.
No unallocated stuff. It's bad for you.
And reconciliation.
Reconciliation. That's the key. That's the key. Fantastic. So, Kelleen, there's a question for you here. It says, why should I work with a broker instead of calling the insurance company directly?
Definitely. So if you call the insurance company directly, they can tell you about their plans, but they can't give you advice, and they can't compare other insurance companies' plans with their plans. So what we do is we run multiple quotes with multiple carriers to get you the best plan for your situation at the lowest price. And surprisingly enough, we don't charge any fees for that. Every single plan out there has an embedded compensation for brokers already built in, whether you utilize a broker or not. So it really is in your best interest to use one, because we can give you the best advice other than separate from the insurance companies. And also, we're an advocate in any situation that arises. You can call us instead of that 1-800 number. So it really makes sense to utilize a broker.
Because your call is important to us. Please
That's
hold.
Please hold.
Please hold. Thank you, Kelleen. There's another COVID-related question for Eric. It says, is COVID specifically covered on my liability policy?
The quick answer is no.
Oh.
And what we've been instructed to do well, I'll give the official answer and the Eric answer. The official answer is you need to file a claim with your insurance carrier. So the Department of Insurance Commissioner basically said, hey, us in the agency force can't say no to a client that's seeking relief for any COVID-related income issues because of the interruption aspect to their business. So I've had clients that will go ahead policy business interruption because my business hasn't been open. I'm a hair salon, I'm a restaurant, I'm a caterer, whatever. And so I need to go and say, let's get you to file a claim. Have any of those claims paid? No, they have not, because viruses are specifically excluded in policies. So, and then when it comes to business income, it has to come from a covered claim. So if there's a covered claim, let's say is a fire, a theft, broken water pipe, that triggers the business income coverage. And that's generally what you see in the denial of coverage letter that the insurance carrier will call you. So any of you business owners listening to this seeking relief from a COVID-related business interruption, the first course of action is for you simply to file a claim with your carrier. You will pretty much be denied no matter what your attorney says. It's just that's where insurance carriers are. So unless you have, state governments trying to force carriers to pay, which is basically going beyond what the contract says, there's really no relief there. So there you go. That's the answer.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying this. I have a question for Nate. The question says, I already registered my business with the Secretary of State. Do I need a trademark registration too?
So this is a very common question that comes up. We have people that have registered their domain name and they have filed with the Secretary of State to form a corporation or an LLC, and to them, they own their business. Yep. But what really happens is that the Secretary of State has formed a business entity, a corporation or an LLC for you. And you have your address on the internet for you to put your website up. But you still don't have anything that is going to allow you to stop somebody else from using that name. And that's where trademark protection comes in. If you are relying on the trademark rights that you earn through using the name without a registration, you're going to end up with geographically limited protections, which means that if you have a business here in Orange County and you have clients that are here in Orange County, then you're going to end up with trademark rights that are enforceable in Orange County. But if somebody in Las Vegas or Chicago opens a similar business and uses the exact same name as you, you'll have nothing to stop them from doing that, and they may take over the industry. But if you register a trademark with the Federal Trademark Office, then you get nationwide enforcement for your trademarks. You can build your brand here in Southern California, assuming you meet all the minimum requirements for doing so. And if somebody does open in Las Vegas or Chicago or Maine, and they use the name that's the same as yours or similar to yours, you can call me and we can send them a letter. We can say, hey, you can't do that, and you can stop them. So that's the next important thing to do.
Oh, fantastic. That's good to know. So there are ways to prevent someone else in a different state, from taking the name and doing business. So that's
And I don't think I plugged my firm earlier, but if you want to call one of the trademark attorneys at Camuti Law Group, then we can certainly help you with that.
Absolutely. So thank you for that. And we have another question for Brian. What type of life insurance should a business owner have?
It's a great question. Definitely look at small business. A lot of times they take out a small business loan, and that typically would be like a life insurance policy. It'll cover that for each individual. If there's 2 business owners, we have $1 million on each business owner in case one would die. But then again, for the business itself, the 2 business owners are owning the business and they're growing the business. As the business is growing, maybe like a cash value life insurance policy work too, and benefit that they can actually save money in the cash value. And at any time, they could pull that money out tax-free. It's not tied to any type of brokerage account or in the market. If you want to pull $100,000 out of the market, you have to pull out probably 120 right now. If the market's down or things like that. So definitely cash value life insurance is definitely a great venue to use, along with those living benefits. If somebody were to get hurt, sick, or injured within the business, you could actually take out a claim and pull money out. So you're using basically the insurance company's money. You're leveraging that. $1 can get you $10 if you're using the insurance type money. So.
Wait, Brian, so does the company pay for the insurance policy, or is it an individual policy for the owner?
That's another good question too. I mean, obviously, if we can use the business to pay for it, that's an easier paycheck to write. Business. We always want to look at what's best, tax wise. We want to be tax efficient too. So we could do it either way. One thing about if it's an individual, they keep that policy. It's wherever they go, it's portable. If you tie it to the business, if you close the business down, you change ownership or, so I would probably go with the individual route. So that way people have that policy. If somebody sells a business, the question would be like, would you want to keep that life insurance policy for yourself after the business is sold? Have that option. So the answer to that question, I'd probably say individual. Yeah.
And how would someone know what's the amount they should insure their business for?
It's a great question as well. I would say let's do an evaluation of the business every few years. Let's take a look at it, because in the beginning, people have an idea what their business is worth until they get the evaluation. They're shocked, like it may be worth, they think it's worth $2 million, and it's not. Or so there's a way we can use a tool that gives them information. It's free to take a look at what the evaluation is, what the revenue is in the business, how we can make changes to that different revenue and make things look better on paper. So they can, if they're thinking about selling the business, but evaluation would be huge, definitely for sure.
Cool, thank you. So there's another question here that says, my accountant filed the paperwork for my corporation. What do I need to do now? I think this is for Nate.
Do it again.
That is a very common thing, that your accountant will file the paperwork to form a business entity. And that's a great step in the right direction. But it's very important that after that, you talk to a business attorney to make sure that you put all of the things in place so that you are having all of the required meetings for your business, and you're keeping all of the required records for your business. Because those kinds of things, the corporate minutes from your shareholder meeting and your board of directors meetings and your LLC formation meetings, are all of the things that actually provide the protection of having a business. And if something goes wrong and you end up in a lawsuit, those are the things that people are going to look at to try to take away that protection from you. And it's something that is very important to maintain. And if you keep up with it, it's something that can be just an easy routine part of your year and doesn't need to be a headache. And the thing that's actually important and kind of shocking is that this applies even to LLCs and corporations that only have one person in them. So a single shareholder corporation has to have a shareholders meeting every year, and there needs to be minutes of that meeting recorded and put in with your corporate paperwork to, I guess, document that you were talking to yourself.
Hey, we do that.
Is it legal to talk to yourself? Does that count?
I do it all the time.
Everybody here who has talked to themselves, raise your hand. And now everybody without their hand up is sitting there thinking, what? I don't talk to myself.
But that's very good to know. This is something I didn't know. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. That I need to document my self-talk. Discussion between me,
all the good ideas you have that you approve.
My board of directors. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Nate. And then there is another one for Lisa. Lisa, why should I have a bookkeeper and a CPA if the CPA is doing my books?
That is good question. So from a financial standpoint, right? When you have a person, let's say your CPA does your books and file your taxes, you're paying the same amount of money, whether you have a CPA that does the books and the taxes, or you have a bookkeeper that handle your books and a CPA file your taxes. So don't be mistaken. Like if they, a lot of times CPA combine their fees together, but if you ask them to break it down, they break it down for you. And you see that I would say the majority of CPAs do not enjoy doing bookkeeping. Just talk to them. They would tell you the truth. They don't like to do it, but they do it as a service to the client. And it's usually get done maybe once a year or once a month. It's not the most effective way to spend your money where you can have the same amount of money and have two different advisors that you can reach out to, that you can talk to. The other part of it is, I believe in the separation of duties when it comes to accounting tasks. You wouldn't want to have an employees that have authorization to write checks to also reconcile your books, right? Or if you are doing that, if you're not the person that's doing that, then you might want to look at your process. Just go on to Google and, this is the one time when you can do bookkeeping embezzlement, and you will see there's so many cases on that. You don't want the same person doing that. And so therefore, same thing with bookkeeping and CPAs. The bookkeepers do a day-to-day transaction, keep the information organized, but then the CPA review it and then figure out the best way to file your taxes to use the information. So it benefits you and it doesn't cost you more to have two advisors, a bookkeeper and a CPA. Hope that answered the question.
Yes, thank you. And does it have to be like around tax year that I need to change my bookkeeper, or can I do it anytime?
You can do it anytime. And we actually have clients that come to us that are a few years back, and because of COVID, they are needing their financial statements to apply for these federal fundings. And so we've gone back and done years of bookkeeping catch up for them. We know how to do it. We're efficient at it. We'll be happy to help you anytime, any day.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lisa. Kelleen, there's a question for you. Is what's often misunderstood about working with a health insurance broker?
Okay. Well, I think the misunderstanding is that different brokers have different prices for the same plans. That's not true. We run the quotes and they're all the same, depending on what area you're running it in and with the employees that you're using. Small business is 1 to 99 employees, and we're all going to get the same quotes. The difference is that broker actually going to go through that 100, list of quotes and find that plan that works best for your employees? That's the difference.
So because you're not getting, paid from the client, you're getting paid from the insurance and trying to find the best fit for that client. This is how diligent basically is the broker. This is what you need to make sure that they're going over the different carriers and they providing the best fit for the clients.
Exactly. And then it's their choice on what carrier that they go with, and we get paid by that carrier that they choose.
Oh, that's great.
If the pricing is all the same, does that mean the plans are all the same as well? Or is there really any difference from the plans?
No, there's definite variation in the plan. It's a metal tier system now. So it's bronze, silver, gold, and platinum. And within those tiers, there are variations for each carrier. And we've got about 8 carriers now in California, depending on the county that you live in.
Great.
Oh, so let's see. Do we have more questions? How is a business supposed to manage the employee life cycle with the potential candidates and employees are working from home? I think this is a payroll question.
So yeah, so basically, basically that's a question about basically how am I managing my people from home, and how does it, as I've talked about, the employee life cycle. So with COVID, as it relates, you know, one of the biggest things that we have are really 2 different things. It's the applicant tracking system, where somebody can literally apply online with an application, not just say, here's my resume, but actually fill out an application, maybe some business specific questions for that business. And then that gives the employer a view into some of the questions they answered. Are they a good fit? And if they want to say yes, then they can click a button and say, now I want to onboard that employee, and send them all their documentation. So you can keep people from afar and keep them where they're supposed to be, like maybe out of the office, out of anywhere, worried about travel, those types of things. So you can manage them from afar. But what that also accesses is there's a big thing now. It's called WOTC, WOTC, Work Opportunity Tax Credits. Work Opportunity Tax Credits is something that's been around since the 70s. Mm-hmm. Congress renews it every 2 years. And literally all it is that if you ask the right questions, any new hire, they don't have to be, it's not a zone or a sort, it doesn't have to be a specific any new hire in the United States, if they qualify, that employer can get a tax credit of anywhere from $2,400 to $9,600, depending if that employee is qualified. So when you have people that are applying from afar, you can actually ask them questions in the applicant tracking system, in the onboarding. They can actually be 2 separate systems. You can both ask those questions. And if you do, you can actually get a dashboard that says, hey, these individuals, everything being equal, I've got Hala that applies for a tax credit, and I got Brian, if I hire him, doesn't get the tax credit. Well, and those tax credit for the employer, they are dollar for dollar. They're like cash. They come straight off your taxes. So it is, and it's something, those tax credits, if you get them, you actually can bank them for 3 years too. So you can use them over the next 3 years to benefit your business. So that's a way that a lot of these systems and what we're calling at FAR, or, you know, kind of these away systems that, you know, because again, a lot of businesses lay people off or had to let them go. Well, now you can rehire them and still apply for the WOTC credits. But you know, again, those credits have always been difficult to apply for because there's a lot of information. But if you use these systems, and again, an applicant tracking system with an onboarding, which Heartland has, then again, you can actually get that data, and then you can see a dashboard. Hey, here's all the people that apply. Here's the ones. And then if you want to, you click a button, and then we apply for you, and you don't have to pay for it unless you actually get the credit. So it's a way of managing people, but also getting a benefit that normally would be very difficult, or having to ask all these questions to all these new hires that most small businesses, and again, you don't have to be, you can have 1 employee to 1,000 employees. It doesn't matter. It could apply to anybody. But again, obviously with a small business, that's a lot of paperwork, a lot of questions, a lot of stuff to have to deal to try to sift through to find out if they file a tax credit. This is where we let technology do it for you.
Perfect. I have 2 last questions, one for Eric and one for myself. So I'm gonna ask Eric first. What is an example of the exposures, and how do I protect myself?
The exposures?
The exposures you are referring to, I guess.
The exposures. Oh, the exposures. Well, I guess it depends on what application
maybe the cybersecurity. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe. Well, yeah, because since I did bring that up initially, so exposures would be there's phishing. So somebody kept clicking on a link, and it's an innocuous website, and suddenly they've infected their computer with a script or a Trojan horse of some sort that's infected their computer, and they don't know it. And then when they send an email out, suddenly they're infecting their fellow, their colleagues, their clients and systems, and which exposes them to potential issues. It can be also a data breach. So that's a huge exposure for those that have private information. attorneys, payroll companies, doctors, lawyers, well, attorneys and lawyers, same thing, escrow companies, CPAs, bookkeepers, all those people, doctors, dentists, anyone that has either health information, which opens up a whole Pandora's box of exposure, because now you're not only did you have a breach, you also had HIPAA issues, and that is a separate fine unto itself.
Yes.
So, and there's also there's also ransomware. So suddenly your system gets locked up until you pay a ransom. Cities have been locked down because of that. Schools, hospitals, small insurance offices. No one is immune just because you do less than $1 million in revenues and you have 3 employees. You're not immune from this, and that's a huge, huge problem, is the cyber issues. And anyway, I strongly urge people to get your systems checked out and get a good cyber liability policy.
So is there any difference of an employee being at home clicking on something that is, let's say, phishing, and how that exposes the employer? Does it matter? As long as they're an employee?
Well, it just depends on who
that.
Well, it depends who that employee is. Are they just a run-of-the-mill, one of 500, grunt workers? They can infect each of the other 499 if they're communicating with each other. Are they communicating to HR? Here are the hours I worked. Does the HR now have it? And they can communicate with the CFO. Now the CFO has it. So you think how quickly it can infect a company, but it just depends. But their own personal bank assets can be at risk, because if they click on an email and they're on Citibank or Capital One or Wells Fargo with their passwords and everything, a hacker can easily take that down, and suddenly they have access to that person's accounts. So it doesn't have to necessarily infiltrate the entire company they work for. It could just be their own personally. So anyway, there are a lot of ramifications for cyber crimes, and they happen all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
Cyber is, you cannot be more, you have to be paranoid in a healthy way, and get yourself covered and insured and put the right software in place to prevent all these kind of things, because the dark web is scary. So, so the last question that I got is an interesting one. How a business coach going to help me run my business? Which is how?
Sorry, I'm kidding.
How? So basically, a business coach is going to help a business owner. The first thing, stay focused. In this world full of distractions, we're gonna focus. You remember the last point was planning? Sticking to your plan is going to be the number one thing. We need to keep the focus on the right activities. We're gonna do a lot of education, teaching the business owners how to run the business. Most times than others, business owners are very good at what they do in their trade, in their profession. They are not very experienced in how to run a business. So I help them with the education on how to run a business, keep them accountable on the tasks they say they want to do. I make sure they do them. Make sure I give them systems and tools to run their business most efficiently. And finally, test and measure, and making sure that whatever we try to implement, we are always fine-tuning it and tweaking it so that it operates at an optimal level. So a business coach is not doing the heavy lifting, the business owner is doing the heavy lifting, but at the same time, my job is to introduce the business owners to professionals and experts who are gonna help those business owners run their business in a much more efficient way, have them covered, have them compliant, provide the best service so that they can focus on their client and let the expert focus on the sides of the business they're not necessarily great at. So that's the role of a business coach. And, finally, before we wrap up, I would like each and every single one of you, I would like to thank you first, but I would like to give you the opportunity to give everybody you know, where they can reach you and what's the best way, whether it's an email address or it's a contact number or it's a website they need to go to. So, you know, it's your opportunity to plug your company, where can they find you, and what's the best way to reach out. So we're gonna go the same order. Let's start with Lisa first.
All right, so best way to check us out is go to our website, because our pricing information is on there too. So you can see all the services and pricing, www.smartbeaninc.com. And then you can complete the survey and get a free trial. So, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lisa. Brian.
I have my email up right now. It's Armstrong_Brian at nlgroupmail.com. You can get a hold of me that way. And my cell phone number is area code 949-415-9230.
415-53.
No, let me do it again for you. It's 949-415-9230.
9230. Fantastic. I'll put that in the body of the post so that everyone can, you know, easily reach out. How about you, Kelleen?
Our website is copiousinsurance.com, and you can reach out to us that way, or you can email me at kelleen@copiousinsurance.com.
Fantastic. Chris, Fergus.
So the best way to get a hold of me is either via email and or cell phone. So my email is christopher.fergus, that's Fergus, @heartland.us. Or my cell phone is 714-457-8751.
Can you repeat that slowly?
714-457-8751. And it's christopher.fergus@heartland.us.
Thank you, Chris. Nate.
All right, so our website is camutilaw.com, and Camuti is spelled C-A-M as in Mary, U-T-I. So that's CAMUTILAW.com. And you'll find on our website a button that says schedule a consultation. And you can click that button and schedule a consultation with myself or one of our other patent or trademark attorneys. And we'll be happy to help you learn about the processes and walk you through the whole maze.
Thank you, Nate. Eric?
Yes, the easiest way to get a hold of me is email, Eric with a C at INSUREDWell.com. That's INSUREDWell.com, which is also an easy way to get to our website, INSUREDWell.com. Our phone number's there. You can reach out. You can start a quote request, and one of our agents or myself will reach it right back out to you.
Fantastic.
And campsite area too, and find Eric there too, huh? Campsite.
And the campsite.
Yes, in the campsite.
Always a campsite.
Yes, and finally, thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you, my esteemed panel. I'm so honored and blessed to be part of your teams. And then for everyone who would like to reach out, this is here, my website. You can request your free coaching session, and I'm more than happy to help you navigate these tough times and give you guidance on what needs to be done. Thank you, everyone. And please feel free to reach out to any one of us.
You're the best, Hala.
Thanks, Hala.
Thanks, everyone.